it's been about 5 years now since I moved over to the UK, and there was a really interesting adjustment period for me. I've always found England, of course Wales, and of course Scotland as well, very beautiful. Fell in love with the landscapes almost right away. But there was this tension for a few years as a photographer where I kind of brought my old habits with me and old preferences and tried to apply that here. And it wasn't until I started doing the work up in North Wales that I felt like I found something new, and obviously I've been very excited by that work. But over the past few months, I've started to, I guess I would just say, fully accept my surroundings and the landscapes here, and just starting to see potential everywhere. And it's pretty exciting. And specifically, I've wanted to spend more time in South Wales and also where it borders with England. For me, I can get out to these places in about 2 hours, and day trips are doable. And I really liked the idea of coming out here and starting to focus here to do some work. So that's exactly what I'm doing today. I'm actually in England right now, but I'm very close to the Welsh border. And specifically was doing some research last night and came across this old 11th century church, which still exists. No roads go out to it. You have to walk about 1.5 miles through farm fields, and thought it could be a cool one to check out. So parked over there where those houses are. Probably can't see them on video. Just started my trek, and I'm gonna try and find the right of way here and head across these farm fields, see if we can find this place. And yeah, got the Mamiya 6 square format, some black and white film, and just enjoy this place. But I'll tell you what, already, every time I come out to these places, I'm just like, they're so incredibly beautiful, just the landscape. Gotta visit them more often. Anyways, we'll get on with our walk. So this has got to be one of the most peaceful places that I've ever been. I just came directly through this farmyard and then across this farm field, and what you see out in the open is the churchyard walls and then the church in the background. And it's just such an incredible setting. You have what look like big redwoods here, big cedar trees, gravestones dating back to the 1700s, 1800s, and then just an amazing amount of history. This place and a number of other churches are taken care of by this organization called the Friends of Friendless Churches, and essentially they go and preserve or take care of these churches that have closed so they don't fall into disrepair, which is incredible work considering if not, these would end up disappearing quite quickly. But on their website for this church, they say that it was built in the 11th century. Inside there's a 13th century baptismal font. There is an oak pulpit from 1632. This preaching cross here is from the 14th century, and then across from us, I'll show you after, is this old castle mound. So amazing amount of history, peaceful setting. Inside's just as fascinating. I'll show you in there after, but yeah, a nice place to spend a couple hours making some images. We'll get back to the video in a minute, just have to take a quick break to talk about the sponsor today, which is Squarespace. So I've been using Squarespace for a number of years now, and it's become one of the most important tools for me as a photographer to build, maintain, and update my photography website. And one of the biggest things that stands out for me is just how easy it is to use while also getting professional looking results. So if that's something like building a new website from scratch using one of their professional looking templates, or something like their blueprint builder, or even just adding new galleries, rearranging images, adding an online shop to sell books, prints, and other things like that, or even adding a blog to start writing. These are all features that are available at the click of a button. So if you've been wanting to build a website, check out squarespace.com today, sign up for a free trial, test it out, and when you're ready to launch, you can use my link below to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. So inside the church is in a very unused state. The building's obviously been looked after, as mentioned, so it doesn't fall into disrepair. But inside here, just nothing has been touched. Specifically over here on the window, you have this picture of the Last Supper, and it's just like molded over the whole thing. There's cobwebs and some amazing details. This organ right here is incredible. The light, you have this nice side light coming in. The chairs. It's pretty great. I mentioned when I moved over here, I went through this period of struggle and not being super happy with or that excited with what surrounded me. And I think for me, I'd worked in the American West for 5 years. I'd photographed a specific subject matter and color palette. And when I came over here without realizing it, it's almost like I was still trying to seek that stuff out. I was going down to the seaside where there were signs and where there were certain things that kind of reminded me of the landscape I'd been so used to photographing, but obviously wasn't it. And that at points led to kind of frustration and not knowing what to do. And it's meanwhile I'm ignoring all of these other things that make the UK unique. And something I think about all the time is from one of my favorite photo books, so Paul Graham's A1, The Great North Road. In the back of it, he has this kind of essay or afterword that he's written, and he's talking about setting out to make this work on the A1 and how he wanted to avoid, doing it in kind of the American road trip style and rather just going and embracing the gray skies and the rain and photographing the reality of what the UK is rather than only seeking out blue skies and sun and stuff like that. And he's talking about, how important it is to kind of respect what makes up the environment or the landscape that you're photographing. And for me, that's very much not only the weather, but now it's, subject matter and things like this, these incredible pieces of history that are so prevalent across England and Wales, and, that really characterize areas and make them unique. And it's stuff that I don't think fully embraced in the past, but now I look at it in a very different way. And it feels like, like I mentioned at the start, there's just potential everywhere. So yeah, it's a bit of a shift for me. I just wanted to talk about that briefly because I think it's important to, just remember or reflect on. And maybe, if you've been struggling in your own area to get excited about, what's around you, maybe it'll help you out a little bit. Just, what makes your area unique, what characterizes it, and just embracing that and respecting that. I think it can do a lot.